this from a very wide perspective, not just HWS centered. So hopefully I can give you some tools to help you out, but show of hands, any ninth graders in the room? Wow! I remember my mom begrudgingly saying, where do you want to visit, when I was a junior, and me being a stinker, so well done, guys. 10th graders? All right. 11? Any seniors trying to figure out things? Good to go, good to go. Okay, so how I tried to break this down, it's kind of how I approached a practice plan when I was doing that as a coach. It was basically the pre, during, after, and then kind of the recap, okay? So, basically the first part of what I want to tell you guys is when to start, okay? When do you want to start doing things when it, comes to the college process, okay? So it's great that there's some ninth graders here, and I actually did start then. So in ninth grade, what should you be thinking about, okay? You should be thinking about the classes that you're taking. Obviously, all of us stressed during the panel, the most important piece, the academic piece to your application is your transcript, okay? It shows us, did he struggle in ninth grade and then start to figure out things and have that upward grade trend? Or is the grade trend, was he a rock star in ninth grade and then absolutely bombed, going downhill into 12th? It shows us, what's the potential for that student. And what we see during our senior year is your senior year is basically more indicative or most indicative of what you're going to do in college. But your ninth grade year does count, okay? You need to think about the types of courses that you're taking. Okay, everybody loves to take just fun classes and classes that they want to take, but you need to make sure that you are challenging yourself, okay? And I want all of you, students and parents, to realize that challenging yourself does not mean taking 10 APs. Challenging yourself means you're taking a look at who you are academically and where you can stretch yourself. Okay, if you're a strong English student and you received an A- or a B+ in English in 10th grade, maybe you should think about taking an honors class or an AP class your junior year. Okay? So make sure you're challenging yourself. You don't want to just float through college, because I would rather take someone with a 2.7 GPA but a strong course load over someone with a 3.7 that's taken basket weaving, baby English, baby math, I don't want that. I want somebody that's going to be challenging, is trying to, make themselves the best learner that they can. Okay, is going to get out there, is going to take chances academically, and that's not just for Hobart Wayne Smith, that's any school, from Harvard to Binghamton to Vassar to Scranton, wherever you're looking, okay, and that starts in ninth grade, okay, you can't just realize that in 11th and say, oh, I'm going to throw on tons of classes, okay. We also want to try to see you taking as complete a curriculum as possible. That's one thing we didn't mention, okay, and when I say complete curriculum, it's 4 years in the five core subject areas, okay. Foreign language, English, science, math, and humanities. Okay, so we want to see you trying to take as complete a curriculum as possible. And then, in ninth grade, you should also start thinking about what do you want to be involved in? What are you passionate about? Okay, if you're a student athlete, don't just play sports. Okay, you can do other things. Maybe it's 1 or 2 activities outside of that you're passionate about, that you want to be involved in. Okay, since none of you have filled out the Common App yet, there's a section in there that asks, okay, involvement. What is it? And it will say, how many weeks a year do you participate in this? And how many hours a week do you participate in it? Okay, and I look at that, and I look what years have they done it. And I kind of laugh a little bit if I see 10 activities and they're all 12th grade, and it's, 1 week a year and 12 hours a week. We want to see depth in what you're doing. Okay, and if I see 1 activity on there, but you've been doing it since ninth grade and you've grown in leadership, that shows character, it shows stick-to-itiveness. Okay, so like I said, it's not breadth of what you're doing, it's the depth. So that starts in ninth grade. Looking at your curriculum, what are you taking? How are you challenging yourself? Okay, and then the involvement, what do you want to do? Okay, so that's when you start then. So, in 10th and 11th grade, I think, you need to start focusing on what your needs and interests are when it comes to a college. All right, you're getting to know yourself a little bit better, what you like, what you don't like. And there's a couple of things that you need to ask yourself when you start looking at these colleges. And one of them is learning environment. Okay, what kind of learning environment do you learn best in? Are you someone that can be one of 300 people in a lecture hall and not have to really know your teacher very well, or have to have that as a value to your education to be successful and enjoy it? Okay, and if that's the case, then, UNC, Virginia Tech, something like that, go for it. Okay, because it's going to be much harder for you to have that relationship with a faculty member, maybe a TA, but maybe not a faculty member. Now, if you're someone that enjoys the type of learning environment you have here at Irvington, okay, that's when you should look at maybe a smaller school, okay? When I say small learning environment, it's, small class sizes. We have a 17 to 1 ratio. I think most of the schools here have a ratio, student-teacher ratio in the classroom, or average class size, that's 30 or less. Okay, so they're going to get to know their faculty member. Chances are they're going to be taught by a professor. Okay, those professors could help them get connections, whether it be research, jobs, whatever it may be. So that's a small learning environment. My advice is to look at both when you're going through the college process. Okay, I looked at Penn State. I went there and I said, this is just too big for me, but it was important for me to see. Okay, and obviously I ended up in a school of 2,300 students. So that learning environment was what's best for me. Okay, and you need to take a good look at that and think about what you like. I know sometimes people say, I've gone to school with these kids since kindergarten, I'm sick of them, I just want a big school, I want to get out of here, I'm sick of having, 800 people in my school, I need a big school. And chances are, they'll go to that school and they'll realize, I kind of miss, walking around and seeing faces that I know, people that understand me, and then you see them possibly transferring to another school. Okay, so don't just revolt to revolt. Be open-minded, check it out, and really take a good look at yourself and see where you learn best, okay? You need to learn or really think about what your academic interests are, what your involvement or extracurricular interests are. Okay, if you want to play a college sport, then you should probably take a look at where you fall athletically. Are you a Division III athlete, Division I athlete, Division II? Take a look at that, and then obviously you're going to be focusing your efforts on those schools, okay? Are you a student that is heavily involved in community service? Look at schools where you can be involved in community service. And when I say that, it's like not having to wait until your junior, senior year. You want to be involved early, okay? You don't want to have to wait to do things, okay? So involvement, maybe it's global education, research experiences, internships, okay? So, figure out what's important to you academically. Are you a brilliant artist? And do you want more of a traditional art school like a RISD or a Savannah College of Art and Design, okay? Are you an engineer? Do you want to do engineering, but you also love English, but you want to go to a school where you can do both of those? Okay, I guarantee you that, we've had tons of students come to any of our schools, whatever schools I've coached at or worked for, I've had tons of students come in and say, I'm going to be a doctor. And they take a college level biology class and they're like, I am not going to be a doctor. So I think going to a school, be open-minded, and going to a school knowing that you might change your mind, okay? I changed my mind a ton of times. I went and I was a history major, political science minor. I thought about going into law, thought I was going to be a teacher. Then I ended up being a soccer coach, and now I'm an associate director of admissions. So I think you need to approach college more as, where am I going to acquire the best set of skills that I can acquire and set myself up in the best place to hopefully get a job and hopefully understand what I don't like so I can focus on what I do like, okay? The next thing, the general one, look at what kind of size do you like, location. You want to stay closer to Northeast, you want to go out west, okay? And very important, look at the cost, all right? If cost is going to be a concern, you know what, I think you should do the net price calculator because you should see, what it's going to cost you to attend that school, okay? Because regardless of how great an institution is, you should not go into debt for 40 years just for that, because there are a lot of absolutely fabulous schools out there that might be less expensive than another. I would not want anyone to come to our school if they're going to be in debt $40,000 or $50,000 after 4 years. I wouldn't want them to come to our school, regardless of how much I want them here. I wouldn't want to do that to them because, that's digging a hole for yourself when you graduate. And, I'd say that's a great other school that you've been admitted to. And I think, the best situation for you is for you to go there. Okay, so you have to look at cost. Look at support services. Do you have special learning needs that need to be accommodated for? Okay, schools work with this in all different, ways. Okay, and I think it's an important thing. I read tons of applications and students talk about, their special learning needs. I don't think that's something you should hide. Okay, don't ever use it as an excuse for anything, but I don't think it's something you should be ashamed of. There's tons of special learning needs. Okay, and you need to make sure you look at schools that, if you're dyslexic, you need to make sure that you go to a school that can support you in that regard. Okay, if you have special, emotional needs, you need to be able to go to a school where you can be supported in that nature. Okay, so look at the support services. Something, like I said, take a look at yourself and make sure you go to a school where you can be supported in a way that you need to be supported in whatever, unique area you're talking about. And then in 11th and 12th grade, I think that's when you start visiting schools. Okay, I didn't say 10th grade because I think you're still still going through that process of trying to figure out who you are. And it might, to be honest, in 10th grade, it would have freaked me out if I was visiting schools, okay? And like I said, I don't think you know yourself well enough, and it's so far out from when you would actually be graduating from high school that you're going to forget parts of these schools that you visit. Now, granted, if you're wanting to visit schools on the West Coast and you're out there on a family trip, maybe you visit a school, okay? That's a little bit more of a difficult trip, okay? But I really think, you should start focusing on visiting schools in 11th and 12th grade, okay? Now, this is a question for the room again. Who picks what schools you should visit? Show of hands. Who thinks it's the students, the kids that pick what school you want to visit? Okay. Who thinks it's the parents that pick? Who thinks it's both? There you go. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, in 11th grade when my mom came and said, where do you want to look on spring break? I was the biggest stinker. I apologize to her to this day because I just wasn't ready for the process. And you know what? Fortunately, she picked Hobart Winsmith as the first school I visited. But kids, be kind to your parents. They're just as stressed out as you are. Parents, be kind to your kids. So I think it really needs to be a conversation between both. Parents, you went through this college process a long time ago as students. Now it's your kids' turn, so you really need to be listening to what they have to say, their fears, their wants, their hopes, their dreams. Kids, you need to understand that you're probably not paying the check. So, you need to listen to your parents. They do actually have some great ideas if you give them a chance. So I think it really needs to be a combination and a good conversation about, what you need to articulate why you want to go to these schools. Parents, the same thing. It's not just, UNC, love their basketball team. It needs to be a concerted effort to come to a conclusion together about where you want to visit, and I think it's very, very important to be open-minded when it comes to that. Okay, what kind of visits? There's specialized open houses where, okay, you want to be a doctor. Your dream is to go to Oxford and study med school there, okay? Well, maybe, Baxter has a program for their sciences, specialized open houses. You can go to those, okay? There's junior open houses now. I always say if you're going a long way to visit a school and they have an open house on a certain day, I would probably go to the open house because that way you're going to probably get a much wider breadth of the campus community than just going to visit on an information session and tour, okay, to be perfectly honest. A lot of times those involve panels, it involves more interaction with faculty members, staff members, students. The more you can immerse yourself in an institution, the better. Okay, sometimes those open house programs are quite large, but if you're going to invest the time to drive 5 or 6 hours somewhere, get the most out of your visit. Okay, so if you can do a specialized visit program, do it. But like I said, it's just important to get on campus and get the feel for it. I think you need to get a good cross-section of schools. I've touched on this a couple of times. You need to see geographically, okay, well, what's it like a couple hours from home? Don't just say I want to go to the south because just like everyone else in the Northeast, you're sick of the cold and snow, okay? You need to make sure that you pick a school and, you go to schools in the Northeast, the South, the West, whatever it is. You pick a different schools in terms of cost, location, size, okay? Academics. You need to do that because you need to see what it is. Like I said, I went and visited Penn State. My dad was born and raised in State College. My family were deans there, okay? But I went and visited, regardless of how much I loved that school, it wasn't the right fit for me, but I need to see that. I need to get out of my own way and go there and immerse myself and see that, okay? The vast majority of visits to colleges involve information sessions and tours. The vast majority of information sessions are given by admissions counselors, okay? So we're here, our job is to recruit and enroll students, okay? A lot of times tours are done by the students at the school, okay? What I would say is on those visits, you need to find a way to get us out of the way, okay, and actually talk to students and get that real approach to it. So I always say, arrive early, arrive on time, okay, but give yourself time to explore a college. I always say do the dining hall test, okay, or cafeteria test. So you go there, have a meal there. What are the students like? Because to be quite honest, it doesn't matter necessarily majors, minors, whatever it is. If you can't see yourself being classmates with the people that are surrounding you in a dining hall, then you're probably not going to be too happy there, regardless of, if they have your physics major or your economics major. Okay, you need to see what it's like in your peer group, and you need to talk to the students that go there that aren't necessarily being paid. You really want to try to get the most genuine view of a school. Okay, and that's just by wandering around. If you're lost, ask somebody. Are they friendly? Are they not friendly? You know, see what the culture's like. It's really important. You know, overnight visits. Usually during your senior year, you can stay overnight on campus. So I apologize, that's usually not a Friday or Saturday night. But I think it's important because socially, it's also exceedingly important to see if you fit in socially. You know, you're a student that is not someone who is the party type, okay? Well, go and see if you can fit in the culture of that institution, all right? Are you going to be comfortable there, okay? You really need to see who your peers are and how you fit. Are you going to be all right calling this home for 8 months out of the year? And then obviously if a school offers interviews or they recommend interviews, you know, I would do that. Our school, I'm the person who covers, I say Westchester, Fairchester, so Westchester and Fairfield, so I lovingly say Fairchester. I interview more students than any of my colleagues. I interview probably around 230, 250 students. And to be honest, I love doing it. That's why I do the job. I enjoy getting to know you, and to be honest, I have a hard time saying no to the kids that I get to know and the potential that I see. Because, let's be honest, do you think the story of who you are is going to be all told on a piece of paper? No, it's not. And when I go and put my knee pads on and beg to the committee to, you know, let this person in that has a 2.8 GPA, but they're great, and this is why, you know, they've struggled here or there. You know, it's a great way for you to talk about your journey, okay? And it's a nice piece to the application because your application should be a story, all right? And at the same time, this whole process isn't just about us as admissions counselors and who we're choosing. A huge part of this process is about you. So an interview allows you to really ask those questions and see how you fit, and have a one-on-one with an admissions counselor or a student interviewer that they have there, okay? I think it's important for you to do that. You know, maybe you have some questions that you don't want to ask with your parents there, okay? Maybe if you do an overnight or hang out with some students, you know, there's questions that you want to ask them where you don't want me there, okay? You don't want your parents there. I always say it's creepy if I know exactly what the social life is like on our campus, because I'm 37, so if I know exactly what it's like, that is creepy. So I mean, I think it's important for you to have those conversations. I work with all of our tour guides on campus, and I always tell them, don't ever give the package response when somebody asks, what's the social life like? And they start giving me, we have 50 clubs and activities and everything, you know, on the weekend. That's nonsense, because I can tell you right now, that is not what the vast majority of campus is doing on the weekend. Okay, so I always tell them, you know, what's campus really like? What do students do? Okay? Sift through the nonsense, basically, and stay away from broad generalizations. Everybody does this, or everybody does that. No, everybody doesn't do this, everybody doesn't do that. Okay, I think that at the heart of what you should try to decipher when you're visiting schools, what does the average student do? Okay, what does the average student do as a student there? Okay, what kind of activities are they involved in? What kind of opportunities do they have? And what's the average student doing when they graduate? Every school loves to highlight that rock star that's just getting the unbelievable internship, or they have the 4.0 GPA, or they're an all-American athlete, or player of the year, or they've done a bazillion hours of community service. But the vast majority of kids are average. So what does the average student do? Okay? That's important, because it shows at the heart of what an institution is. What are they doing with the vast majority of their students? What kind of success are they having? How are they helping them grow? And I think that's a difficult thing to do. Some of that can just be, you know, ask through questions, what type of internships, what type of opportunities, okay? So any questions about that? Like, when to do what? Yes?
What proportion of the schools actually give interviews?
It depends. My last school that I coached for was Carnegie Mellon University. They received over 30,000 applications. They didn't care about interviews. I know the Ivy League schools, a lot of them do alumni interviews, okay? So I think it's look at each admissions site, and they'll say whether an interview is recommended, not recommended, if they're through alums, okay? If your son or daughter, or student, if you're looking at a school that's a great distance away, maybe you should see if you can get an interview. It's demonstrated interest, okay? So just see on the website. But if it's recommended or offered, it's not going to hurt you to do it. Yes?
How does it work exactly with getting or scheduling the visits? I just next spring break, I decide to, I figure out that I like this from next college, and I make a phone call to the admissions office, or to the admissions office, and ask them, where can you receive
just like all of you here today. You know, you get the free tuition room and board from, yeah, not so much. It's actually a perfect segue into what I was going to say next. So, you know, any school, basically, the vast majority have visits from Monday through Saturday, okay? And yeah, it's as easy as picking up the phone saying, I want to visit on March 24th. What kind of opportunities do you have for me, my son or daughter to visit? And you'll ask maybe what class year they are. But yeah, it's as simple as that, just picking up the phone and seeing what's available, okay? You guys need to take a look at when during the year you're visiting. A lot of people visit in spring break, so in April, okay? It's going to be a massive humanity, but the great thing is students are on campus. So there's a different feel to campus, okay? A lot of students will visit schools over the summer, which is also a really great opportunity, okay? You're not missing any work or anything like that, but at the same time, students aren't on campus. So you're not going to have that interaction with your peer group, okay? But I think you should still, if you have an opportunity to visit a campus, visit a campus. And if it piques your interest, then go back when students are in session. I always say, you know what, you visited April or summer of your junior year, just after your junior year, go back your senior year, because you're going to have many more things on that bucket list checked off of, here's what I like, here's what I don't like. And go back, visit, do a really in-depth visit, okay? So yeah, you can just call up and say, I want to visit on this date, what type of opportunities, okay? Like I said, go in with an open mind. Make sure you do advanced research on a school. I always love it when students come into my office to interview with me, and I have NCAA trophies there from when I played, and you know, the team that won the championship, they signed a team photo, and I have a student saying, do you guys have soccer here? And I just kind of shake my head a little bit. So do research on the school. You know, we want to invest our time, and people are investing time in us. And if you're visiting a school, it's like taking a test. You're going to get more out of a test or a class if you actually do the work. Okay, and it's not that hard to get online or talk to your family, friends, whomever it may be. I think that's you know, you should really ask your counselors. What type of schools do you think will be a good fit for me? Okay, all of you have great family and friends, so talk to them. Well, what type of schools did you look at? What did you like about them? What didn't you like about them? Because they're a wealth of knowledge as well. I mean, maybe your friend visited Vassar, and you know what? She didn't like it. So, you know, you don't want to go there. Okay, but be open-minded. You know, really talk to them about what a visit's like. Maybe they went to an open house, see what that's like, or if you should just go to an information session or tour. Talk to those people that are around you. I think that you should have a set of questions that you want answered at each school. Okay, so that would be the heart of, you know, what's important to you. Have a couple of questions that are important to your experience. Okay, parents, you should have some. You know, students, don't just shake your head and be embarrassed by your parents. But I think you need to have, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 questions that you need the answers to at each campus. And more than just, okay, what's your enrollment, what's your test optional, whatever it is. Like stuff that you can't find on a website. Have those core questions so you can really compare and contrast as you go through the process. Take notes after each visit, okay? And here's a very important thing. Don't try to do too much in one visit, especially over spring break. As you were saying, I'm sure a lot of you are going to be visiting schools if you're juniors. You know, I see some families that are trying to visit 2 schools in a day, and the schools are about 3 hours apart. And, you know, usually you're stressed out, you're, you know, frustrated with each other, you've been in a car, you're stir crazy. I can usually see when someone's at the beginning of their trip and when somebody's at the end of their trip, okay? So pace yourselves. I don't think, you know, if they're close colleges, then maybe you do 2 in a day, okay? But don't try to do too much. I don't think you should visit more than 5 or 6 colleges tops on a trip. I just think that's cruel and unusual punishment if you do more than that. So I think really pace yourself, because that 5th school might be an absolute perfect school for you, but you're sick of visiting schools and you're not going to be as open-minded. You're going to be probably not as patient with the whole process. So don't try to put too much into what you're doing. Okay, another important piece is, you know, look at what you're wearing at these schools. Okay, you don't need to wear a tux to visit. You don't need a tie most of the time. But please, I ask of you, not to wear a Union sweatshirt on our campus or a St. Lawrence sweatshirt on our campus. You know, it's great if you go visit those schools' bookstores and you get gear, but don't wear it at another campus. You know, you'd be surprised how many times I've interviewed students with a nice college sweatshirt. They don't have a sibling or parent that have gone there. They just wearing it right there. So it kind of says, well, did they really like that school and not really that interested in us? So probably it's pretty interesting. But be presentable. If you feel comfortable wearing what you're wearing with your parents around, You know, belly, not probably something you want to be showing out there in an interview, had that before. Shorts, respectable length. You know, it's if you're visiting schools in the summer, yes, it's hot. You don't have to wear, like I said, a jacket and tie. Just, you know, be presentable. And just know that if you're visiting a certain school, just be college neutral with what you're wearing. So that's what to do on a visit and planning it. How to prepare, like I said, talk to your counselor, do online research. Net price calculators are very important. Scholarship options, okay? See what scholarships are out there. So when you visit a campus, you can ask the counselors, okay, what's this all about? How do I apply? There's certain things that I need to do. We have a top merit scholarship where we require an interview. So know that ahead of time so you're not scrambling after the fact, okay? Admission standards. What are the admission standards? You fit in the admission standards. I'll tell you right now, you might have a 3.8 GPA, but that is including your art classes, your music classes, your phys ed classes. I can tell you right now, unfortunately, pretty much every college extracts those grades, and they recalculate your GPA. Okay, so we're going to look at those 5 core areas. Okay, so yes, I was a great athlete too, and it's unfortunate that my 4.0 GPA in phys ed does not count. I know, very sad about that. I actually did have a student the other year that almost didn't graduate because he failed ping pong. That was tragic. But, you know, we're going to recalculate your GPA because we want to see what you're doing in the core areas. So like I said, math, science, humanities, so history, social science, stuff like that, foreign language, and English, so the 5 areas. So we recalculate that. So a GPA can be a little bit misleading. Are they test optional? If they're not test optional, what's their requirement for ACT or SAT? Do they require subject tests? When I was at Carnegie Mellon, obviously it's a university where you apply into a major, and they required subject tests. So know that ahead of time so you're not scrambling. Okay, so know what they require for an application. Okay, do they require a portfolio? Are you applying to a school for music or art or dance? Something of that nature, architecture. Do they require a portfolio? If they require a portfolio, whether it be 10th grade or 11th grade, you should start thinking about that now, because that's something that, it's you. And you have to put together the best version of you. It's very important. Okay? Scholarship requirements, as I said. And the interview. Like I said, see if an interview is important. Okay? So those are all really important things to do to prepare. And then, what are colleges looking for? I think that's, as we're all trying to get to here. Every college is looking for something different. And don't exhaust yourself by trying to figure it out. Some colleges might be trying to find that student that's going to pay for the next library. Okay? Doesn't matter what their academics are, they want a new library. So they're going to find that student that's going to write the check. Okay? Some schools are going to try to find, a great artist or artists. Okay? Some schools want to diversify their student body. Maybe it's geographically, maybe it's socioeconomically, maybe it's ethnically, religiously. Okay? Male, female, whatever it may be. Maybe schools are trying to find more engineers, fewer engineers. But here's the thing, don't try to play that game. I was sitting in a Starbucks in Westport, Connecticut 3 years ago, and I wanted to pull my hair out because I think the people that were sitting there talking about, oh, this school, that can get in there, and they want this, they had no clue. And it was just short of like pulling out a whiteboard, trying to diagram it. Okay, so don't exhaust yourself trying to figure out what they want. Because I think the most important thing is you're confident in who you are, and you're putting your best foot forward. Okay? Demonstrated interest is a huge part of what colleges are looking for. I can tell you right now, we had to make some very difficult decisions this year because a student, maybe they had a decent GPA, okay? But they didn't show us any love. The only contact we had from the student is an application, which is great. We're happy that they applied to the school, but I'm going to invest in somebody that's not as strong academically because they have showed us interest. They have showed us that they're legitimately interested in enrolling in our institution. Okay, so demonstrated interest is important. You can't visit a school because it's too far or you just have limitations to how you can travel. You need to find a way to demonstrate that interest. Maybe it's an off-campus interview. A lot of my interviews I do down in this area. Okay, so talk to people about that. But it's a very important thing. Demonstrated interest in some ways plays into our financial aid packaging. Okay, so it's a very, very important thing to do. We're looking for character and added value to campus. Academic standards. Maybe it's a holistic view, maybe it's more of a numbers-based view. Binghamton reviews applications much differently than Vassar and Hobart Williams Smith because the number of applications that they have to find a way to narrow that down, okay? You know, we're looking for leadership and involvement. Like I said, we want students that are gonna make our school a better place. I always say when I'm interviewing students, I want somebody who in 4 years, I'm proud to call a fellow alum, okay? So we want students that are gonna do more than just, you know, sit in a classroom and do their homework. We want students that are gonna do more than just, you know, kick a soccer ball really well. You know, we want them to be great people, great leaders, great character, people that are gonna get out of their comfort zone and try new things and be involved, want to give back to the community. Okay, those are people you want to be involved with. Those are people with potential to be very successful. Okay, you know, I think it's also important to own up to shortcomings, own up to your struggles. It's the whole rule of if you get in trouble, you want to tell your parents what kind of trouble you're in before they find out from somebody else. It's the same thing with us. There's a portion of the Common App that says disciplinary issues. So if I sit down and I interview with you and we have this great conversation, and then I get your disciplinary report and realize that you're a great baker of pot brownies, and you'd love to have a cocktail on the weekend every once in a while, yet you never told me about that. So, you know, that kind of makes me question your character a little bit. Okay, so you need to be honest. Everybody struggles. You're teenagers, you screw up. Okay, even as adults we screw up. But you need to own it. Okay? And whatever you do, it's the whole, you know, if I'm in an interview with someone and they say, well, you know, I really struggled in math because my teacher is just such a bad teacher. It's the whole well or the but after that. I'm like, no, they're not really taking notice for that. Okay? You can always take responsibility for shortcomings and struggles. Okay, like I said, don't be nervous about disclosing you have a certain learning need. Okay, that helps us figure out, well, here's the type of support the student is going to need. Can we support them in the way that they need to be supported? Okay, so if you make a mistake, own up to it. It's all right. Okay, everybody makes a mistake. And I think, you know, the vast majority of colleges wants people that have the potential for success. You know, we want students that are going and about to take off. Sometimes those are those really average students that just are hungry for it and they have the best yet in front, you know, yet to go in front of them. Okay, maybe that's sometimes the student who's already the A student. Okay, and there's a lot to be said about, you know, what is potential for success. Okay, and to kind of conclude, your applications should tell a story. And through this whole process, starting in 9th grade through 12th grade, all right, the most beneficial applications for me to read are those ones where the essay that you write, whether it be just the regular common application essay or the essay that you, supplementary essays that schools might ask you to write. You know, they're going to tell a story of who you are. When you sit down to put that application together, you should be saying, this is what I want that college to come away from my application with. This is who I am. So how am I going to get that across in an application? You do that through the essay that you write. Okay, you do that through talking to your counselor saying, you know, this is kind of what I want the college to know about me. This is the vision that I want them to have. Can you talk about that in the essay? Okay? So it has to be a story, and hopefully, you know, your transcript will reflect what it says as well. Okay, so it should tell a story. And most importantly, don't try to figure out what schools are looking for. Be yourself and just put your best foot forward. If you're proud of it, that's all you can ask for. Just put the best foot forward and try to enjoy the process. Don't get too stressed. You know, I think that's important. So, questions? Yes?
Can you specify in more detail what it will be?
An SAP. So the Common App now has 5 specific questions that students need to answer. And basically, it just depends. There are 5 different questions. They change every year. Okay, we don't have a supplementary essay this year. I think the most important thing in an essay is, you know, tell us something that, this is your place to tell us whatever you want about yourself. It has to be well written, okay? I can tell you right now, I don't want to read an essay written by a parent. And we can tell if it's written by a parent, if it's written by an independent counselor, if it's written by your high school guidance counselor, we can tell, okay? We want the student's voice to come through, okay? And they should go into that essay saying, this is what I want a school to know about me. So in whatever context you write about that, you write about it, but it has to be well written. I think it's 650 words or less. The Common App doesn't cut you off at 650. But you really need to sit down and say, this is what I want, this is the image that I want the school to have of me, right? And, you know, well-written essay, And it's kind of, okay, well, why is this? What action have you taken? How has it affected you? And how has that affected the change in what you're doing moving forward? So, pre, during, post. Yes?
I'm wondering what demonstrated interest looks like other than a visit to the college, and what the fine line is about being persistent and maybe doing a follow-up thank you note. For the
Stalker or not stalker?
Yeah, exactly.
I love the love notes the kids send me after visits. I have a stack of them. Students actually have started to send me postcards, which I love. I have a whole wall of them. So demonstrate interest can be an interview. It can be visiting with a college when they visit your school, because all of them have little information cards. It could be visiting them at a college fair and filling out the information card. Visiting campus, as I said. Maybe they are doing a session in the area, so you do that. Demonstrate interest, maybe you know an alumni of the school and they write a letter on your behalf. So it's all encompassing. Inquiring at the school. It varies for each school and what they put priority on.
And as an admissions counselor, do you find it appropriate? I mean, you could send a letter saying thank you for the visit,
Oh,
but
yeah.
also a follow-up, like.
I think that's a very important thing to do. You know what, I take the time as much as I can to send an email or a letter to say thank you for visiting, because, it's a lot of your time and effort to get there as well. So I think sending a letter after an email after a visit to, especially if someone interviews you, I think it's an important thing to do. And you can have a dialogue with an admissions counselor. Okay, an email every week, kind of bordering on the stalkerish. It's my email right now is scaring me a little bit, but I can tell you right now, I love hearing from students, and that's demonstrated interest. I'm getting the ones now begging, I really love your school, and usually, it's the ones I've never heard from before, and, they're the ones that are not getting good letters. But I think, having that conversation, getting a relationship with that counselor, because it's very hard for us, we all have hearts, okay, and it's very hard for us to say no to somebody that we've gotten to know, we know who they are, we know the potential for success. So yeah, I think it's important. But I think one last question, and we have to get going. One last question, yes.
Could you just comment about the testing and
Testing, okay.
in terms of what you envision in terms of pre-planning for
For testing,
for sophomores, juniors?
So I think you can start SAT prep sophomore year. I would do it more towards the end. And then your junior year is where you should really start hammering on it. And I think taking an SAT, in the first testing date, I think is in, the fall of your junior year. I think you take that, and a lot of schools super score. So if you have the ability and financial means to do those SAT courses, it's not going to hurt. The SAT and ACT, I'm not a big fan of either of those tests. But if you can see how they kind of play the game, starting your sophomore year with SAT prep probably would be beneficial. So I am here if you want anything afterwards, but I know
We have to,
the session is starting.
Session 2 is going to start in 3 minutes.
Run like the wind.